Oh, hey there. Can I sit here? Well, welcome to video 4. We have decided to make a change to how we're doing this challenge because we wanted to show you some footage of the exercise being ridden really well before we go into the exercise using the information from the horse as diagnostics. So today's video is an added video where we are going to
basically show you a number of riders with different horses, different breeds and types, and at different levels of training, riding the exercise. And so I think it's interesting to see what it looks like when horses with different body types ride the exercise and different levels.
And I know so many of you are, like me, visual learners. And so it really helps to be able to see the exercise being ridden to really understand how it works. So let's get to it.
So here's our first rider riding the exercise at the trot. The angle in the shoulder is relatively moderate, which is okay. You don't have to ride a steep angle, and the volte looks nice and round. Bend looks good, and then here is the transition from the end of the volte to the leg yield. That looks okay too. The horse is getting a little bit slower. Ideally, the tempo should be the same. They shouldn't speed up where it's easy and slow down where it's hard. So then in that case, if the horse slows down, you can drive a little bit, activate. Sometimes you have to swing a little more with your own hips, make a little room under your seat so the horse can move his hind legs a little faster. Yeah, and then when you've done it in one direction, you ride it in the opposite direction. Here you have to half fold into the left hind leg a little bit. It all looks actually quite good. Here in this direction, it looks like the shoulder is leading a little more than in the other direction, but otherwise it looks fine. One thing to watch out for is that the angle is the same. See there, the horse offered the canter, and or Michael asked for the canter, and then did the volte in canter, and the lateral movements are done in the trot. Here you have to watch the right shoulder too, and then the canter depart in the corner. That's a horse that tends to lose a little impulsion in the canter, so cantering into a small space accentuates that a little bit. So for him it might be easier to do the canter in a place where there is more open road ahead of the horse. He did the exercise in the canter, so with a simple change there. In the canter it's quite a bit more difficult to ride than in the trot, but he's doing a good job here. And for the canter here, the half pass is the most difficult moment, right? And you can do a down transition from canter to trot or to walk and then pick up the new lead. So you're doing a simple change, doesn't have to be a flying change. And so you get an impression of what the exercise looks like. Now we'll look at some more footage. So here Michael is doing it in hand in the trot, so a little shoulder in on the long side, then the volte. He does a very good job there. Looks good. So the outside rein turns the shoulder, and the inside rein can push the nose out if the horse overbends the neck, and you can elevate a little bit and use the inside rein to unload the inside shoulder and shift the weight to the outside hind. And then for that leg yield or half pass, you can go to the outside. That's a little easier than leading from the inside. Either way is possible, but here the horse does a pretty good job. The danger is that some horses may throw the haunches sideways too much, but this went really well. And so here, shoulder in. Watch that the angle is always the same in the lateral movements going left and right. And here in the volte, be careful that the haunches don't drift out unless you want the horse to sidestep, which is okay. You can do that. You can do the volte with a bit of shoulder in feeling And also in the leg yield, watch that the line is this has the same angle in both directions, and the horse, the angle of the horse's body to the line of travel is the same. And so he canters even in hand. Very nice. So this is an example for the exercise in hand. So here we have another rider with another horse. So it's interesting to look at the same exercise ridden by different people with different types of horse. So there you see the shoulder in has a shallow angle, which is okay. The angle could be more consistent. The horse kind of increases and decreases a little, but Maggie hasn't been working with him that long, so it's not her regular horse. The volte looks pretty good. And when you post the trot, see how went back a little too far, but doesn't matter. When you post the trot, you can try posting on either hind leg. It's typically easier here in the shoulder in if you post on the outside hind. So if you sit down when the outside hind is on the ground, because then you can take the horse sideways and support the sidestepping a little better with the inside leg. And so here in the leg yield, this is how it works out, right? The old inside hind is the new outside. So now Maggie is sitting down when the left hind leg is on the ground, and that makes it a little easier for the right leg to bring that right hind leg under the body. You have to be careful that the shoulder doesn't lead too much, and so you may have to frame the left shoulder with the left knee and rein a little more. Also watch that you're not curving your spine, that there's no C-curve in the spine. That happens easily in lateral movements, that people start leaning or curving their spine, right? So stay vertical and let the weight flow into that left hind leg there, but the end comes around nicely around the corner. And here there's almost a little too much angle in the beginning. Watch also that you're not leaning to the inside, and I would, like I said, post on the outside hind leg to increase the sidestepping of the inside hind. And then here it looks like the croup comes around more quickly. It almost looks like slightly easier in this direction. So very good. And then you can see when you ride it the second time, the horse already knows where to go. There was a little wobble. I would keep the angle of the shoulder in before I go into the volte. I would not go back to single track, because sometimes that can make the horses crooked. Makes it a little hectic, and horses sometimes then just lean against the wall. So I would stay in the shoulder in until I start the volte, and then from the volte into that leg yield. Now you can see that the second time around it's easier, it's smoother, and that's normal because the horse knows where to go. And here in this shoulder in right, you have to watch that the angle doesn't get too steep in the beginning. So the tempo is okay, it's slightly quick, but with this horse it might actually work to his advantage in the lateral movements. If he were slower, there would be a risk that he would get bogged down a little bit. And you see the canter depart here that flowed pretty easily out of the leg yield, and he's still pretty quick in the canter still. Not that balanced yet in the canter. But he did it, and picked up the correct lead, and then so that was a good choice to go back to the trot on the volte, and then you can repeat it, go into the leg yield and canter in the other direction, and stay on the wall here. On the right, it always looks like the horse would like to come a little off the rail. That usually means they have a little too much weight on the inside pair of legs, so you have to maybe shift your weight more into the outside hind leg, and then with your inside leg keep the horse stepping under the body. So here we have another rider with Eva with her quarter horse mare. These two have come unbelievably far in the last 2 years. I mean, the horse couldn't go on the bit a couple of years ago and couldn't really canter, and now she can ride her even with a double bridle, and the horse is able to canter and is able to go on the bit, and they've improved a tremendous amount, and the horse looks very different in terms of the muscling, and they're having fun together. They used to be Western riders, and now they're doing working equitation, I think, more than Western. So you see, the shoulder in looks nice here. It's hard to see how close the horse is to the camera. I think they look closer than they really are. So here from the shoulder in into the volte, transition was pretty good. And then you shift the weight, change the bend, and move over, or leg, or half pass. This looks almost like it's a half pass rather than a leg yield. Yeah, so here the angle is nice and stable, tempo is nice and consistent. Here it looks like you have to guard the outside shoulder a little bit so that the horse doesn't slip through the cracks there of the aids. And but yeah, here see it's more of a half pass, very nice. And then at the end, make the horse parallel to the long side, change the bend, and she's out of the out of the picture, out of the frame, and the horse is cantering. So here we have yet another rider and horse. It's an Appaloosa. So you see it in the trot, looks nice and relaxed in the trot, in the shoulder in, and then you have the transition to the volte. There you have to be careful that the horse doesn't lean into the turn. It looks like when you see the horse from the front, you see how the legs are not really vertical to the ground. That happens when the tempo is a little high for the turn radius, and if the outside hind leg loses the connection to the ground a little bit, then the horses lean into the turn. They lean a little on the inside shoulder, so there you could enlarge half hold into the outside hind leg, sit on the outside hind leg to make the horse upright. Here it looks better, and the croup swings a little to the outside, and not dramatic, just a little bit, right? And then here the leg yield flows fairly smoothly. He just got a little faster there, right? So yeah, in the volte, let's look at the volte again. If the croup comes out, you may have to bring your outside hip a little back and have your outside leg in touch a little bit more. But the horse seems to handle these transitions pretty well. See there, you can half fold into the right hind leg, so the left hind leg crosses better, and then half fold into the right hind before these turns, and then keep the balance in the corner in the turn so the horse doesn't speed up. But otherwise it looked pretty good. So here we have another rider with a Lipizzan on. It's Kristen, and she's competing at Prix St. George in some I1. So you see the whole thing ridden in the canter, and you can see how her arena is a little smaller than regular size. So she marked off a workspace with cones, and so she goes here from the right side of a row of cones to the left row of cones, and she had to cut the shoulder in a little short, so in order not to run out of space. So you just do a few strides, shoulder in, then you do your volte, and then after the volte, the half pass. And you can see how the quality of the canter in the upper level horses is very different from the quality of the canter in the lower level horses. They're much more uphill, much more balanced, shorter strides. There's it's quiet, calm tempo, so you have time to influence the horse, time to place your aids, etc. So that in that sense it makes it easier for the rider. And the higher degree of collection that enables the horse to ride movements in the canter, smaller turns, lateral movements, flying changes, and you can see how it flows nicely here. The volte gives you the bend you need for the half pass. Then you capitalize on that. You have to just make sure the horse keeps going and doesn't lose power in the half pass, and then you do the flying change afterwards. You can see how the flying change is nice and straight and uphill, because there was a lot of weight on the inside hind leg at the end of your half pass, and then you just have to make the horse's body parallel to the long side, change the bend, and then the horse is pretty happy to change leads because it feels like this makes life easier. So here as well, and this half pass is relatively steep here, and there you go. So a nice uphill straight change as well the second time around. So here we have another rider on a Lipizzan, also an upper level rider. So they're showing Intermedia 2 successfully. Kristen is showing Prix St. George in Intermedia 1. So a nice transition from the shoulder into the volte, and from the volte then, with a horse like this, you can easily do a half pass. Then at the end of the half pass, I make the horse parallel with the long side, so you could actually ask the croup to come around a little bit more at the end, and then half hold into the outside hind to make this turn. There's the down transition. We can look at this again too. That's a very active trot there. You have to be careful that it doesn't get too quick, otherwise it gets hurried. Here in the shoulder in, it looks better balanced than it was on the short side. And be careful that the tempo stays the same between shoulder in, volte, and half pass, so the horse does not speed up where it's harder and slow down where it's easier. And then here towards the end, like I said, you can bring the croup a little more around, make the horse parallel to the long side, change the bend, and then you're really set up well for the turn at the end of the arena onto the short side. And then here you can do anything. You're set up and prepared for another movement. So here we have the same horse and rider in the canter. It's interesting to see all the different types of horses. It's interesting to see the exercise ridden in the trot and the canter. So I guess here it starts on that long side. You see a nice shoulder in the canter, then the volte. They have to watch that the neck doesn't bend too much, otherwise the horse will push a little through the outside shoulder. He's got a fairly long neck, so there. And then the transition to half pass is pretty good. And then bring the horse croup parallel to the long side, and then the flying change afterwards. And you see also that the flying change is pretty easy and nice and uphill in both horses. We can look at that again too. So there's the preparation. So the shoulder in begins, or the preparation begins in the corner, and then you lead the horse into the shoulder in, from the shoulder into the volte. You may have to lift the withers a little bit in that transition so the horse stays uphill. And like I said here, keep the neck a little bit straighter so it doesn't lean through on the outside shoulder, and then lift the withers and move the whole horse sideways, and then make him parallel to the long side, shift the weight and the bend, change the bend and change leads. And you see the changes are clean and uphill in both upper level horses here. So I'm hoping that was interesting for you to watch this variety of horses and riders, and now we can go try it again with your own horse.
So, what do you think? I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was really helpful for you. So if you haven't ridden the exercise, go ride it. If you have ridden the exercise, but you learned some new things by watching these videos, go ride it again. And then tomorrow, we're going to actually cover what was going to be day 4 It's now day 5 of our now 6-day challenge. And we're going to look at how to use the exercises as diagnostics so that you can analyze the results that you get from your ride or what's happening in the ride and figure out how to use that to find out more about your horse. So, ready?
Yeah.
Ready, set, go.